case we have any contentious votes.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. We are trying to accommodate everybody and make sure we have a camera rolling before we start the meeting so we don't have to do it all over again. Roll call. Mr. Vega.
Commissioner DePoit,
Here.
Commissioner McHatton,
Here.
Commissioner Quinn,
Here.
Commissioner Convery,
Here.
Commissioner McCready,
Here.
and Chair Akins.
Here. Okay, if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I'm just trying to figure out where our city manager just left. Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Yeah, I've seen that before. First off, we like to recognize our new city manager, James Vega.
Congratulations.
Welcome and yes, congratulations. I think you have an item that we heard about in the email yesterday, but the public may not have. Could you share that with us, please?
Yeah, so unfortunately, with some good news, there's also some bad news. We had the planning director, Luke Connolly, has resigned effective yesterday.
Okay.
So bear with me today. I'm scrambling a little bit, but we'll get going, and I'm sure it'll work out. But he has resigned. So.
Okay, great, thank you. Then my immediate thought, having attended all the budget sessions, was that this is how James is getting the budget back balanced, that he's doing 4 different jobs at the time, and therefore there may be funds for the HPC again. So just quick, a council meeting debrief. Again, we have City Manager Vega here. We had put some submissions and requests into the City Council. One of those was $15,000. That was our best estimate on half of what a resource report was going to be for the historic downtown. That was listed on the overhead as historic reports. I clarified that. The council, in trying to manage the budget and work towards balancing the budget, eliminated that item for now. However, Councilman Wyrick and also Councilman Haney, where they were sitting that night, both emphasized that if the HPC needed funds during the year or sometime during the year, for us to then come to council. So we're not completely precluded.
And
Yes.
if I could, because I actually plan to come to this meeting and comment about this as well, because
Great.
obviously,
Thank you.
we had a $125,000 deficit at the last round of budget hearings, and basically, what we had been presenting to council from the beginning was supposed to be the same things that were in last year's budget at this year's prices. And so when we had the $125,000 deficit, council said, can you go back through it and see if there's anything that did get added in that was not in last year's budget? So unfortunately, I was going to say it probably felt unfair from the HPC perspective, because on the list of things that had been added in that were not supposed to be added in because they hadn't been directed to be added in was the $15,000 for the historic reports, because last year there actually was 0 budgeted. I made an adjustment to get the $5,000 for the
Right.
Playhouse, but it was 0 budgeted, so that would have been a $15,000 increase versus last year. So it got basically what we did is we whittled it back down to what was in last year's. We got our deficit down to, I think it was 52,000, so it was a casualty of that. But I didn't want the HPC to feel singled out because it was a case of trying to keep it in line with last year's amounts. But the council did make the point of come back and bring this item back. And there's a few things that made a short list of, if more money comes in than we're expecting, these are things we'll do. So.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. My understanding too is that there is a little over $5,000, again, that amount is similar to last year's allocation, that is actually in the 2019-2020 budget for the HPC.
There's Funding, the other items that were requested to be funded were included. There's zero included for the historic reports.
Yes, yes, correct.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much for that. And Commissioner Convery, I'm sorry to tell you that as one of the discussion points, the amount allocated for improving this chamber was also cut from the budget.
It would be free to take those curtains down and put them in the trash. I would volunteer to do that.
I'm sure.
There's actually a couple of council members that have commented about that too, but the challenge for us is actually we tried we tried videoing with the curtains down and there's glare.
Yeah.
So I think we need curtains to.
Okay, it's
take
okay.
these down.
It was a joke. Sort of a
That's a
joke.
hot topic.
It's okay. The curtains are a hot topic.
Great. Thank you for that update. Going down the next line item, Museum Rep Mark Lewis. Mark Lewis has been the.
Excuse me,
I'm
but
sorry.
I think we need public comments, don't we?
We haven't got there yet.
Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to get the stuff done before we get there, but we can go back to that. Let's go back to public communications. We'll see if there are any. Members of the public wishing to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items appearing on the agenda are requested to complete a speaker's card and file it with the secretary. That would be Mr. Vega at the moment. Cards are available in the council chamber's lobby. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes unless additional time is granted by the chair. Speakers should state their name and address for the record and must direct their comments to the chair, not the audience or press. While the Historic Preservation Commission is in session, members of the commission, city staff, and members of the audience are expected to maintain order and decorum and to obey the orders of the chair. Any public comments? Deafening silence. So, Mr. Walker, who we all know as a former member of our Historic Preservation Commission, would you be so kind as to introduce the guest that's on your right side? We've seen her before, but and know of her work, but the people may not know who is there.
This is Carol Bernardo. She's the head of Provenience, the company that writes several of the reports that you see. And I had the great pleasure to work with her on Section 4 of the theater report. It was a real eye-opening experience for me to be on the other side of it and see what it takes to really make those. And it's not as easy as it seems. But anyway, Carol Bernardo.
Great, thank you very much, Carol. Welcome. I know you were here 2 months ago. Came in quietly, left quietly. So just wanted to get you introduced both to us and to the public that's paying attention. Thank you very much. Museum representative report. Mark Lewis is no longer the president of the museum. His term completed, happily for Mark. And so he came in as our museum rep. The museum rep used to be more a position where you had someone from the museum who was here to bring their the knowledge they had and maybe add to conversations or answer questions. For a long time, that was David Mason. And then when David Mason I sat where he did, and then I came up and sat here on the days with the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm not sure we have a historically based, yes, I have, yeah, yeah. So, thank you. Of course, I can't find it. So what I'm suggesting in the meantime, until maybe we get a museum rep, is just for any updates that I bring those, since I'm on the board, if that's okay with the Historic Preservation Commission?
Sure.
Okay. So, Gina, I asked for a email that had all of that information. So just to remind folks, there is a a town talk this coming Sunday at 4:30 to 6 at the museum. This will be a gentleman that talks about California ranches, founding familias, the Ojai Valley during the Rancho era, which is our current exhibit, is on through July 28th, clock's ticking. This month's Town Talk is the perfect companion event. Architect and author Mark Appleton will present an illustrated talk about California ranches based on his fabulous book, Ranches, Home on the Range in California. If you love architecture or ranch life, or just want to learn more about this lure of the West, this one's for you. Again, it's this Sunday, 4:30 to 6, free for museum members and $5 for those that aren't. So other items that are of importance can be found on the Facebook page of the Ojai Valley Museum or on the Ojai Valley website. Thank you very much, Gina. Too many papers. Okay. Items of business. Consent item. Minutes of the May 9th, 2019 regular meeting. Any adjustments or?
Yeah, there's a, on page 2, or no, the last page, where it says future agenda items. The second bullet point, it says, based on Libby's beautiful principles, she would like to ask the council. I think they meant Commissioner Convery would like to ask the council, because it doesn't, who knows who she is. Just, that's it.
Okay. Any other adjustments? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
great, thank you.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended. Can we do this by consent, Mr. Vega? Okay. So approved. Okay, moving on to item number 2. Item number 2 is a review of the Historic Resources Report for the Playhouse Theater located at 145 East Ojai Avenue. Mr. Vega, do you have any staff information for us?
I know that the Historic Resources Report was, had been prepared and provided, I think it was in May to the HPC, so it was provided with the intent to get some revisions and review before passing on to council. And it's on the agenda today to complete that review. That's all I have on it.
Okay. So there have been some revisions and changes. I think the best person to walk us through that might be Commissioner DuPoit. Do you want to walk us through, or me to walk you through, us through, or what would you like to do? Well, first, before you go into the detail, just let me provide. So again, we had the report at the last meeting. Commissioner DuPoit had listed out numerous changes. She had asked, I think at the time that we were meeting, the staff actually had that information. The request was by Commissioner DuPoit that be sent to Provenience, and asked if, upon their review, that could be included in a revised report. That report was then revised. We heard that the staff had that in place, and so we asked Luke, and also copied Sherry, and asked them if they could, because Provenience was wonderful enough to make those changes and then get that revision back to us, and asked if that could go out to the commission members at that time, and it did. And so what we have now in our packet is actually that packet, the updated report provided to us. Thank you very much. So, Elise.
So I reviewed the revised report and just found a couple items that I sent out in an email. Craig Walker is the one who inputted my first correct changes, and so I emailed him and copied Luke and Sherry, and they are included. There's just a few items. There are in the packet, but they haven't been put into the report. So I just suggest these, and then Luke wanted to know if anybody else had any changes they wanted to put in. So those are my changes there that I would like to see.
Okay, so Appendix B are the changes that are not included in the current document we have.
Correct.
Okay.
So then it would just be if anybody else has anything they wanted to bring up.
Great, thank you. Mr. Vega, would it be okay if I asked for Mr. Nardo and Mr. Walker to, they look like they're squirming in their seats, and maybe they could give us a little bit more clarity? Is there anything else we should know?
I didn't know anything about that. I responded to comments, and I heard nothing else.
She needs to speak at the mic.
Oh, yes, could you come to the mic, please? Thank you.
Doesn't know about what.
So I think you're saying that the recent round of comments you hadn't received yet. My understanding was, I think the question was if the commission was approving those changes to be made before they would be sent to Carol.
Which changes are you talking about?
The changes on it that are attachment B of this item.
That's correct. Those have not been sent.
Right, so I just wanted to make that clear. So what they're talking about is a couple of other comments that they're going to determine whether to send back or not.
Are these new ones that have come in since?
You were copied on the
I've
email,
sent them to you in an email. There's just a couple little things.
Was it just like the spelling of theater?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
it's just-
That's the one, it was directed to you on June 24th.
Craig?
So, but that is the one with the spelling.
Did we respond to that?
So those are the latest
Okay.
comments, and the commission is just seeing those for the first time in this packet.
Yes.
The reason that I had the original spelling that I did is if you look at the front of the theater, the spelling on the glass in the very front spells it R-E.
Yes. But that's, the Hartleys put that on when they had it in 2007, 2008.
But I
Paulette
changed all
doesn't-
that. I changed it to theater, ER, throughout the whole.
Well, there's two spots where it needs to stay the way the Hartleys spelled it, because that's what they called it. That's all.
Oh,
So it seemed to be just a
Just
time
tell us the
frame.
pages that you want it to be R-E instead of E-R.
I believe I did.
yeah.
Okay. I think what happened is that went out, and then I think Luke or somebody said, why don't we wait on that and see if there's any other input, so.
Right.
Plus,
and it's-
a lot of the footers still have RE instead of ER.
Yeah, and the key issue is, I think the commission, what Luke's intent with that was is that the commission would vote whether to accept these modifications or not.
Okay, so you would like to see the footers be ER,
Well, half are ER and half are RE.
and those are marked here in your notes, so we know which ones to change?
Yes.
They are, okay.
I'll just do a
Okay.
word search. That's not a problem. Yeah, normally I will just go through one round of review. I mean, because this could go on.
We understand
Ever.
that, and that's why I was expressing our appreciation for not only you incorporating the other changes, but getting it back to us on the June 12th date.
Can I make a comment?
Of course.
So Elise, you're saying that the Hartleys changed the name to theater spelled R-E
Correct.
during the whatever,
Few
3, 4 years. So on page 5 of 60, attachment A, it says 2007, Mark and Kathy Hartley purchased the Playhouse. They changed the name to the Ojai Theater, and it's spelled E-R. So that should be corrected, right? It's on page 5 of 60, attachment A.
Attachment A.
The very front of the thing where it does the timeline, it's in the timeline. It's on like page 3, 4, 5 of the timeline. 2007.
Oh,
Mark and Kathy
Page 5 of
Hartley
the timeline.
purchased the
That
Ojai
should be
Playhouse.
RE there.
So there might be a good idea here to add a sentence saying they changed the spelling of the word theater to theatra, or whatever you want to, to a different spelling, because anybody who reads this it's going to be really confusing.
Well,
It's going to look like a misspelling. I think it should be spelled out that they changed the name of the Ojai they took out the Playhouse, whatever the wording is gonna be, we can work on it, but it needs to say RE, they changed it to RE.
That could be added. The
'Cause it's just
the
gonna look like a
Hartleys
bunch of
changed the name to
typos going
Ojai
through here.
Theater.
You know what I'm saying, though, that it needs to be
Yeah.
pointed out that they actually did that, because it's super confusing, you know?
So here's what I think we should do, since Ms. DiNardo has already done a complete revision and given that back to us, is maybe have a sheet that's attached to the back of this document, rather than go back and redo the whole document. Again, that's already been done once with quite a few changes, so trying to figure out how we would go forward.
It would probably take 15 minutes to make these changes.
What I could do is just swap out pages. I could, I could make these changes and send the revised report electronically.
Are you okay in doing that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, other changes that,
So we will be able to approve it tonight as amended, so we won't have to wait another month?
I'd love that, yes. I love progress. Yeah, wait till we get to the next item, or not, one of the future items. So, other changes that, okay. I think the changes that Elise suggested are the recommendations then. Do we have a motion from the commission then based on that?
Make a motion to amend it with Cindy's addition of the theater change and Elise's changes.
Second, I second it.
You mean to approve of the,
Approve it.
yeah.
Motion to approve with the changes.
I second the motion.
There we go. Mr. Vega, would you
Yes.
a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner DePoit,
Yes.
Commissioner McHatton,
Yes.
Commissioner McCready,
Yes.
Commissioner Convery,
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn,
Yes.
and Chair Akins.
Yes. Thank you both very much.
Well, I would just like to point out that.
Yes, sir.
How much detailed work it was and how appreciative I was of all the help that Elise did give, because when you hire someone to do a report like this, they're on a budget, and they really don't have the time to go do all that little detailed work, and Elise just contributed, untold hours to proofreading and fact-checking, and I know the historic section is pretty much right on, thanks in part to her work, to her extensive work. So we're going to miss you, Elise, when you go to Arizona.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. And again, thank you. We do appreciate you reaching out to Craig and Elise in support for this historic resource report.
Thank you.
Thank
Very,
you.
very informative. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Okay. Item number 3. Okay, item number 3, I called Sherry. I said, Sherry, when did we talk about this the last time? She said, well, Mr. Volk was here in 2016 to the beginning of 2017. I remember that we talked about it during him. I found it on the agenda on September 8th, 2016. On the video, it shows up at the 34-minute mark, and it got postponed till the next meeting, and I couldn't find it in an agenda after that. I was trying to find it. But I do know at the September 8th, 2016, the 4 of us were there, all there for that meeting. So, staff report, Mr. Vega?
I don't have much on this, but we brought the website version and the detailed version of the landmark list back for discussion by the commission. So that's all I have.
Okay, great, thank you. So let me do just a bit of background. The fold-out chart is what we had 3 years ago at this time. Again, the first discussion I saw was September 8th, 2016. I believe that this was available on the website based on some discussion that took place right at that time. Again, the 4, myself and the 3 to my right, were all here. There was a discussion that took place regarding accuracy of all of this information and keeping all of this information up to date. And when you change the owners, when you change the name, So a lot of discussion, and I think at the impetus of one of our members, it was proposed to simplify it and retract the wealth of information that was available on the website. Darwin, is that how you remember it?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I was going to watch it, but again, I couldn't find the video for it after going through the years twice. So, yes, Commissioner DuPois.
The reason this came up again is because I had said that I wish there had just been a column on the simple one that just gave the year of when it was designated, because that's an important fact, and it was very difficult to find that fact. So my suggestion was to either squeeze the columns or figure out a way to add just the year when it was designated. That's all I added. In the meantime, I've been through them and found a lot of things that, a number of things that need correcting, and I also think it would be important in the simple one to have the year when the building was built. In the note, it could easily fit in the note and detail column, and I've gone through and written them all in. And just as a matter of a fact, for the Ojai jail, it says the architect was the California Department of Fish and Game, and I found this article last week from August 17, 1928, that said the architect was Roy Wilson of Santa Paula. So that's
interesting.
one correction. But I've got a number of other corrections. It's number 1, Presbyterian Church says AKA Presbyterian Church. And that should probably say Nazarene Church. And then there's some other little things. The Smith-Hobson section needs to be changed.
Can you,
I just have some changes, and I don't know if the city could just let me have the file and make the changes and send back like I did with the brochures, or if you want me to send every correction bit by bit to Sherry. If I
Okay.
could have the files, I could just put them in and send them back.
okay, let's hold that thought,
Okay.
please. Commissioner McCatton, I know you raised questions too regarding this.
I just, there's different types of people who are interested in Ojai on a tourist level, on a historic level, and then on a deep historic level, you know. And I think that I like having the links that go to the full report for those deep divers.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to have either a photo of the plaque or the language of the plaque
Mm.
there on with each one, where you can click on it and it just goes to an image, or it's just the because we know that what we chose as our wording there is accurate, mostly, hopefully. I mean, you just found a new architect there, so I'm wondering if that's on the jail plaque. Probably not, for the jail architect on the plaque. at the
Yeah, I don't
front.
know what it is.
I don't
Probably
think so.
I
have
don't
that.
think it's on there.
But we'll just pretend that. But I think that it'd be nice that there was different layers. There was the layers of this is the year, this is the building, this is the landmark and the architect, and this is the information from the plaque, and if you want to go super deep, there's all this information, and just kind of have it be a little layered there. So it's not so much information off the bat, but it is available if you want it.
So we could do that by having multiple links within each line?
Mm-hmm.
Going to, again,
Going to the reports, because I think that we have the links going to we had them.
we do, we have the links going to the Historic Resources Report in the current one. It wasn't, we didn't have that. Sherry hadn't done that yet by request for the old report.
I would still like a column with the year designated on here. I think it's very important.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a second, Elise. So different layers, different links. Okay, great, thank you. Yes, Vice Chair Quinn?
So what I'm wondering is the changes, I mean, it seems like this information must have been taken from the reports. So I'm wondering if the reports are wrong, shouldn't this list say what the reports say? I mean, if there's some new information that comes to light, but I don't really know where this information came from, but I'm assuming it came from the reports. And so I'm wondering about just changing things from new information that don't agree with the reports.
You mean we have to go back and correct the report?
No, I mean, I don't think this should be different than the reports.
Well,
Because
Even
this.
if there's an error?
Well, if it's new information, but isn't this representing what the reports say as opposed to something else?
I don't know.
the Smith-Hobson section is wrong. You can't leave it there just because the report was wrong. I did that whole addendum.
But you
changing
corrected the
things.
report, so the report now is different, right?
Yeah, but I don't think it's been posted anywhere.
So could it be something like, in the,
Can I get Commissioner Combry and then we'll come back over? Yes, she's
I just
trying
think
to
if
figure it
there are
out. the report.
corrections in here that are different than the report, why can't we just pull up the reports and correct them in the reports? They're available, right, in a document form, or is that too
Well, the reports
complicated?
the reports as they were done at that time frame are linked on each of the line items,
So
on the
the
website, on the
Smith-Hobson-
City of Ojai.
So the corrections that Commissioner DuPoit did to the Smith-Hobson report, the link to the Smith-Hobson house goes to that report, which has since been corrected, right?
Yeah, but I don't think the addendum I prepared has been put on the website.
But it will be.
I hope so.
Yeah, I wrote that down, so I'll try to follow up on that.
I guess what I'm saying is the reports are signed by a historian and so on, and they should not be changed. And therefore, this should not be changed. It could have an addendum if we know something, but like, you know, not just willy-nilly go back and change reports that have been submitted and accepted.
What if there's an asterisk, if there's clearly wrong information, and it's proven that it's wrong, like for instance, the Roy Wilson building the jail?
Well, that jail
But-
was paid for by the California Department. They paid
But
for it.
So was that article actually accurate, that Roy Wilson was the architect?
I don't
So,
know.
well, anyway, my suggestion is to do an addendum, an asterisk that says, paid for by California, blah, 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 designed by Roy Wilson, and then add an addendum to the end of the signed report with an asterisk or a footnote.
And that would be-
Reference item
Right,
that
that-
says, it has since been discovered XYZ. you
That
know.
would be fine if we had a historian sign off on that, not just because we read something in the newspaper. So, I mean, these have all been researched. I feel like they're final. Like, I'm guessing that if you read the report on the Presbyterian Church, it would say about the Nazarene Church, because everything I've ever read says it was at one time the Nazarene Church. So, you know, making that a part of it, I don't have a problem with that. But if somebody came in and said, well, really, the architect on my house was George Washington Smith, but instead of the person that I think is the actual person who did the drawings, they just come in and change it, I wouldn't be very happy.
Well, why don't we see actually how many errors there are and if they're really valid,
Right.
you know, before getting into how to deal with them.
That's
Because I
fine.
think the Nazarene Church thing is a pretty small little fix that's in the report, right?
Right, because I would guess that's in the report, right.
Yeah.
I'm
I
saying
think we
this
should see
this
what's
is
there
different.
before it. Which
So,
one are you referring to?
Roy Wilson, it's just,
Oh, yeah, it's an article that we don't know.
Right.
It's true.
so, anyway, that's all I'm saying, is we should be sure anything we
Yeah.
change.
Fair enough, yeah.
Okay, Commissioner McCready, the architect in our midst. Do you have any observations?
No, I kind of agree that what Thais is saying, that we can't alter a report that's, you know, on which our designation is based.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. The best thing to do is to do an addendum like Elise did, and perhaps link that in. So my next question is, here we have this inclusion. Here we have this inclusion. Sorry, that inclusion. You get my point. What exactly do we want to have available? More readily available rather than sorting through the reports.
like I said, I think it should be layers, but if you want to know what landmarks we have in town, it's a nice list, it's a nice address. If you want to know the architect and the detail, the notes, I think if the note was the information from the plaque, it's our information that we chose as a final for the plaque, so I think that could be the detail, and then a link to the architect, and then a link to the report. And then if we find that it's necessary, to put an addendum on the end of the report, but make it clear that it's, as of this date, we found out this information, but keeping that report intact and keeping it where we based our landmark on.
Okay, thank you very
I have a
much.
question, Brian.
Yes.
On the fold-out piece of paper, is this currently what's on the website?
No,
Okay.
no, the
Because my
smaller
question
one
is, it lists who the owners of the properties are. I have 2 comments on that. I don't know that some of these owners want their names readily available on the website, comment number 1. Comment number 2, line 13, O.W. Robertson House lists me as the owner, and I sold that house in 2014.
I think
So-
the owner at the time, when it became a
Yeah,
landmark, is
maybe.
what this list is.
But then, no, that's not right, because Bill and Kathy Couturier did the Libby
yeah,
House, and
here's
it's got
Byron
Ramin
Katie.
Shamshuri and Byron, yeah, it's current owners, except for me. And that means maybe some of these other owners aren't correct that I don't know about. But frankly, I just don't think it's a great choice to list a note. I think it opens the city up to potential drama,
yes.
just saying.
Elise, did you have some observations on what we might include? You mentioned the date landmarked and the date built.
The what now?
You mentioned the date landmarked and the date built
Well,
on
that's,
that kind of a short page.
well, others don't seem to want it, so,
But at least if the
There's-
plaque information was on it, wouldn't
Yeah.
that include it?
yeah, that would be better.
Okay,
But,
so,
On Twice Sold Tales, it should be Maravilla with an A, not with an E at the end.
what number is that?
Number 21
Thank you.
should be Maravilla.
With an A on the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot wrong with the Smith-Hobson one, I've already said that. So,
Right. Yeah, so again, trying to get back to what we would like to be shown. I mean, we could turn this and have this go landmark instead of just portrait. That would give us a few more columns that we could put on there. I mean, I'm leaning towards, you 2 are the owners, so, I take your thoughts on listing the owners rather seriously.
But that document is not accessible to the public, right? Only
No, it's
you
not.
have to ask for it from the city.
Yes,
So
it's
does
not
it matter
accessible.
that the owners are on there then?
Well, we're trying to figure out what would go onto a new report, kind of a
Oh.
hybrid report.
don't want-
And
I
I
don't
think
want-
we've X'd putting an owner on there.
Yeah, I don't-
And a lot of the other information, so.
I'm happy if just the year it was landmarked, and if agreeable, the year the building was built. But that I've let go,
This is,
if we could get the plaque, links to the plaque.
yeah. Does the plaque generally say when it was built?
I think so,
Should.
yes.
Okay. So the important link, it sounds like, would be to, in the note detail, have a link in there to a picture of the plaque. And I know Sherry has been collecting those, because when we did the plaque over at the Nordhoff Grammar School, and then also the plaque out front, she made sure to get copies.
Yeah,
those.
I think doesn't she get a copy too from the people who make them?
I don't know.
A digital copy?
I'm not on
she
that side
can-
of the table.
I think so.
Okay, so landmark, address, plaque as linked to the, and I like your idea of multiple links. I like getting more information. I love that Sherry was able to go in and link the historic resource reports. Just makes it
There's
so
some
much
that are
easier.
missing.
There are.
Arbolado C and A are not on there.
Are you B?
When you click on them,
Oh, you're A?
Oh, the reports aren't?
Do we not have Thais's report?
Well,
we not
when
have
you
your
click
report?
on Arbolata C and Arbolata A, nothing comes up.
Oh, okay, it's not linked in the,
It's not, I didn't look.
oh, okay, we'll check that. So what would folks like to see? Landmark, address, under note detail, link to the actual photo of the plaque, and then architect.
Yeah, well, year built. That's the only comment. I agree with Elise.
Year designated.
Year built, okay. Yeah, I actually would like to see that without having to go to the photo of the plaque. Because one thing, I might never go to the plaque.
Right, and I would suggest just putting the text and not having the images, but we got pretty long-winded, like, on some of them, it might.
Yes. Sorry, Nordhoff Grammar School.
Exactly.
It was a negotiating thing.
I would just comment
Right,
that.
Darwin?
Pardon me?
The language on the Nordhoff Grammar School plaque, it was a negotiating thing. It was being inclusive. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was just going to comment that not every one of these has a plaque.
Oh.
True.
So what should we do about the few corrections I brought up? Should I just email them to Sherry or?
If you would, please, and if you'd copy me, I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
I'll look to see if Roy Wilson's mentioned in that report, the Ojai Jail report.
Oh, okay.
I'll see if it's mentioned there.
Okay.
If it's not, but the California Department of Fish and Game is, I'll read what it says in the report.
Great. Yeah, and if you could attach, or maybe send me a copy of that article that you found in
This-
the paper?
This
Yeah.
little one?
Uh-huh.
Sure.
You know me, I collect everything
I've
I
already got
can.
it scanned, so I'll
Great.
send it to you.
Thank you.
I thought it was a good find.
Excellent. If it wasn't for,
Awesome.
for you and Drew Mashburn, those newspaper books would be totally ignored, one thing.
Under county landmarks, I think it's odd that they said that sycamore tree was planted by the Chumash. I read the description the county has for that.
What number is that, Elise?
County landmark, Libby Park Libby Park Bowl sycamore tree, down at the bottom of page 2, at the bottom.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yes.
It says that the tree was planted by the Chumash, and I read the description of the county's has on that, and they don't say it was planted. They say that they thought they had bent a sapling. So I just think it's odd to say that it was planted, but. And
Okay.
I think it should add that sycamore tree is county landmark number 27, and the fire station is county landmark number 62. I think that's helpful to add that.
Oh, okay, so county fire station number 21 is just like we have 23
27.
down.
The sycamore tree is county landmark number 27, and the fire station is county landmark number 62.
Right. Yeah, no, I was just clarifying that station number 21 was probably the number assigned to that station, like we
Right,
have
yeah,
23. And
yeah.
Okay.
So, Elise,
Yeah.
not to bring up painful memories, but I'd like to get other commissioners' thoughts on this. Do we think that under the note for landmark number 9, the Neff Lounge, we should have a note that it was altered in 2015 after it was landmarked?
Yeah, I think we should take it off.
Where's that at, Darwin?
Under notes for landmark number 9, that it was altered in 2015?
By the owner.
Yes.
Can we use the word severely?
Alterations were made and such by the owner.
Just that it was altered, because it was.
Can we use the word unapproved alteration?
Well, I'm in favor of that if you, I don't-
That, fortunate for you, Mr. Vega, was before your time. I'm sure you've heard war stories.
That was in '09, you said?
No, just
15.
referencing number 9.
2015.
2015,
Yes.
2015? Does everybody agree with
Yes.
adding that, or?
Absolutely,
Yeah, we'll be a little more circumspect in our language because why continue the feud? Okay. Do we have a motion then for item number 3?
I make a motion to adopt the landmark list with the changes we've discussed.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Mr. Vega?
Commissioner DePoit,
Yes.
Commissioner McHatton,
Yes.
Commissioner McCready,
Yes.
Commissioner Convery,
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn,
Yes.
and Chair Akins.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to item number 4. The Annual Historic Preservation Award. Do we have any staff reports, Mr. Vega? He's flipping pages.
Yep, this is a fun item for once. Most of my
Yes.
stuff is not fun, but it's just for the discussion of the Historic Preservation Award, so I'll let you guys handle that part.
Okay, so what we're looking for is nominations by the commission. Based on the number of people we get, the process is then to assign individuals to do biographies and then to come back and to make the actual selection in the following meeting. By custom, these plaques are normally handed out publicly in the first meeting of December in the council meeting. So open it to discussion. Okay, Commissioner McHatton.
And we started these awards in '91.
Well, yeah, they're listed here, so.
So in '92, Craig Walker received an award. I'm assuming it had a lot to do with bringing back Ojai Day and the work he's done. The work he's done since then has been pretty vital to our commission. I would love to see him either up for the award again or at this point a lifetime achievement for the countless hours that he's put in to redo our ordinance and redo it again and maybe again. How many times that went back and forth, and all the hours he put in and the ad hocs that he's been willing to work on and the hours that he's worked on all of our projects.
Okay,
I agree. That's a Lifetime Achievement Award for Craig is a really good idea.
I agree.
other names?
Well, there's quite a few people in the community that deserve a Lifetime Achievement Awards. Unfortunately, we can't give them all, but.
Yeah, I have my own, but.
Like,
We'll
we
get to
thought
that.
of, but there was an idea to give some of these people awards separate from this award. Remember, they talked about sending people who'd worked on the commission for a long time, some kind of award? But this is separate, so, like, Cricket Twitchell, she's been running the walking tour, successful walking tour for almost about since 2010, and then she has a history that goes way back decades for history. She's one person, and then there's Patricia Clark Dorner, and then there's Rose Boggs, and all of these people really deserve awards. So as far as the annual award goes, I was thinking, I told Brian I was thinking of those two women that wrote the 2017 fire books as a good one for the annual award. One of the women lives in Ojai, and one of the women grew up in Ojai but lives somewhere else now. But they really brought the community together after the fire when their book was published. They had numerous events all over town where people could get together and talk about the fire and the effects it had on their lives. And I just think for the annual award, it might be a good selection. That's my
Great.
opinion.
Thank you.
I have a question, but I don't know how that's a preservation award. I mean, it's more of a community support, because I'm looking at preservation of historic resources, archaeological sites, properties, research properties, preservation. So I don't see, I mean, I love the books, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it's historic
Could be under
preservation.
4, historical research. 6, grassroots efforts.
Yeah,
maybe?
would be
That's in
more inclined
historic
for 6.
preservation. Those books aren't about historic preservation.
Oh.
They're about the experience
Oh,
of
I
the
see.
community. That's, I
Okay.
just feel like it's a little off the topic, but.
Well, a couple years ago, they gave one to somebody who was an environmentalist, so.
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, it's not
Anyway.
out of the picture. It's just.
Does anybody have any ideas for annual award then? Besides, that's the ones I had, so.
No.
Other people for annual awards? Again, keeping in mind those 7 different
Period.
topics. While you're thinking about that, let me move ahead. So, last year, we put Terry Hill out as our lifetime achievement. Terry was the 3rd individual. David Mason was the first. Julie Tumamayat was the second. And then Terry Hill. I had a list of 3 people that I wanted to do each year. The second list was for Rose Boggs. Rose Boggs was, again, got left behind. Rose Boggs was on the original commission that was started in 1986, something like long time ago. She was listed. Sherry had sent me a history that I thought it brought, but didn't. And so, you know, my suggestion for the annual report, and again, or the lifetime report, was Rose Boggs. Again, not to lessen the contribution that Craig has done, but again, Rose was on this commission for 30 years,
Something like that.
from the very beginning.
Yeah. And
So,
I think
and-
she just turned 90. Something like
I'm glad
that.
you mentioned that
Yeah.
because I wasn't going to, but yes.
She's up there.
I did,
think she's
I
older
did
than
see her.
80.
Yeah, she might be.
I did see her, I think recently and seemed to be doing
Still
pretty well.
playing tennis, but still.
Yeah, so, again, Rose Boggs is the name I would put out there for the lifetime achievement. Again, other people that are down the road, I think, of course, are Pat Clark Dorner, Craig Walker, other fine people who have been involved in this for a number of years.
I say cricket, Twitchell.
Yes, and cricket. Cricket, by the way, I ran into on the bike trail there in Miramonte as we were out walking, me going north, her going south, and then her going north, me going south. And so she is the next individual we will be interviewing as a part of the oral history program that we've done since 2012. I think I've interviewed 40 people. So, yeah, because Cricket Twitchell, as she reminded me, is one of the few people that actually knew Bob Brown, who was the founder of the Ojai Valley Museum.
Wow.
So she's next in our list, so a very good name and a wonderful person. Annual?
I also think that if we wanted to hold off until Craig is 90, that would be. I think that
No.
just what he's done in this last year, with the time and hours that he's put in for this commission. I mean, I would like to see him get acknowledged. It doesn't have to be a lifetime at this point, but
Like for what, for instance?
all the hours. Well, besides you, but you
No,
know.
but I mean, like what,
Well,
though?
the hours that he put in with the ad hoc to create our ordinance, I know that was a lot of hours. He worked on the showing up and doing all the work that he did behind the scenes for showing up in the Ventura County for the theater and representing that. Whenever there's
The
any
lawsuit,
sort of
yeah.
a face, he's often the face of the historic preservation. He's always, if you read any article in the Ojai Valley News, it's always quoting Craig, and I think that we've relied on him for his expertise so many times with this commission.
Let's see.
Any other annual nominations?
Oh, cricket. So cricket got it in 97.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's been awarded.
Yep.
No. I only thought of the lifetime guys, but you already had named them, the lifetime thoughts.
Do you have an annual?
Did I have an annual? I although I understand, that we're looking at these 7 different things, to me,
Number
Yes.
4 would fit.
yeah, I understand that. But to me, when I was talking to Elise prior to the last meeting, and having been involved with Elizabeth Rowe and Deva Temple, and capturing so well the community and all that we went through for months. And, the pictures that are in here, the articles that are in here, the events that they did to, where it was not only to, it was in many ways a fundraiser for that location. For people to think, oh, well, they did this to make money, they didn't, because I think this book, I buy everything, I get it engraved. I think this book was one of 100.
Yeah, no, that wasn't, I mean.
And so they were doing, so to me, again, having talked with them numerous times through this, their heart was just in the Ojai Valley. And their heart was in capturing all of the different things, going to all of the different thank you signs that took place, as well as all of the stories behind that. And so, to me, that was important because they captured a snapshot of something that was historic in our valley, and leave a lasting legacy for that. And so when Elise mentioned that to me, that's why, in case people hadn't seen the books, that's why I brought my copies of the books. And the museum has copies too. So that's where I was. I thought, I like that thought. I like these people. I like what they did. I like how they, in a time of so much turmoil, they gave you something joyous or something, beautiful to leave.
In 2015, I got the award because of that work I did on that history book, so that was a book. And they used criterion number 4 and also number 3, but anyway, you don't need more than one criteria, do you, necessarily?
Not even to do a landmark.
Yeah.
This is our history.
It is.
It's amazing what they did.
Darwin, have you seen the book?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here. Yeah, and the involvement of the community was just amazing because they did go out.
They had an event at Topa Topa Winery where hundreds of people came,
And I would tell you, the other thing is that when they did this book, they focused on the city of Ojai.
Yeah.
Okay? It wasn't, I mean, there's sentiments and other things that came in from the valley, but when they told me when they were looking for different items, they focused on the city of Ojai. Yes,
My 2 cents.
of course.
Is I kind of tend to agree with Commissioner Convery that maybe the city council should give them some kind of an award for what their contribution to the community, but I personally don't see them preserving or restoring unique historical and cultural heritage. So if everybody wants to do it, I suppose that's fine with me, but I pretty much agree with Commissioner Convery.
I
Yes.
would suggest that there are 2 commissioners that have, landmarked, one has landmarked 2 properties in the city, and one has landmarked one and is about to landmark another one, and has preserved the stone wall on Foothill Road. These are definitely acts of preservation in the city of Ojai. And I think that both individuals, Commissioner Quinn and Commissioner Convery, would be deserving of the Preservation Award of the Year.
Well,
So,
well, personally, I disagree with giving an award to somebody who's on the a commissioner giving an award to
I didn't know about
themselves
that.
on the commission. Doesn't sound good.
Why?
taken.
True.
Why?
I don't know why.
I don't either.
Well, I think I'd like to make a motion if there's no other discussion, and then we'll see where that falls. I'd like to,
Well,
know.
actually, this isn't the motion meeting.
oh, it isn't?
No, it's
Discussion.
it's a selection meeting.
Oh, okay.
And then if there are people that we, basically, so we have a couple ideas that we can then bring it more information back, biographical information, background information at the next meeting. And then at that meeting, we would actually make the selection is generally how it goes. So,
Well, what are the choices so far?
well, we have Commissioner McCready's. We have the ideas for Elizabeth Rose and Deva Temple.
Rose Boggs,
Yeah.
Rose for the lifetime.
a lifetime.
Yeah.
And Craig for the lifetime.
Yes. Craig
Craig
for
for the
lifetime.
lifetime.
Was there a third lifetime? Oh, Patricia Clark Doherty.
Yeah, I was just going to stagger them, so we only had one per year. If you remember last year, we did 2 annual, and there was a bit of a controversy on doing 2 in 1 year.
But those are the 3 names that we discussed?
Yeah.
Okay. Because right now, we're picking out names for
So
discussion.
do you have, did you get the names of those people who wrote the book? What's their names again?
Elizabeth Rose and Deva Temple. Elizabeth Rose lives here in town, out towards the east part, and she and her husband, and Deva Temple, who grew up here, now lives up in Oregon.
Brian, I have a
Remember right.
question.
Yes.
Did you just say we had 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards last year? Is
No,
that-
no, we had 2 annual
Oh,
awards
2
last year.
annual, okay.
Last year
I
we had,
misheard you.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
sorry.
I remember
Yeah, no, we've had
Before.
3 Lifetime Achievement Awards. Again, David, Julie, and Terry last year.
But we've had, 91, 93, 97, there were 3, 4, 93. 2011, there were 4 people. But they were all, was 2011, is that all the same? No, because Dave Mason. See what I'm looking
2011.
at? It's Charlie Sled, Rick, and Judy Mercer. Were they all awarded it as one group, as a one, each
Well,
individually?
I think Charlie Sled and Rick Bisaccia were with the Ojai Valley Land Conservancy.
Mhm.
And Judy Mercer, of course, is with museum. She's the
Okay,
one in collections.
That makes sense. So then
David
there were
Mason received the
two-
Lifetime.
2 awards then. I mean, it's kind of random
It is.
how it's worked out. I'm just trying to get a handle on the
So-
history of it all, but.
So when you think annually, it's what they contributed in 2018?
More recent times, yeah.
Recently.
Yes,
Really? Oh, maybe.
yes. Yeah, I mean, I've been around for the different ones. Tia, down at 2014, did it for the Chumash Garden. That's there in the back of the museum. Again, not historic, but it was something that represented the history of the valley. And so she and the Garden Club did a lot of work. Aaron Clapp actually does restoration work. He had worked on the front door of the museum and restoring that.
Oh, nice.
Brett again for, all of the different articles and research that he's done.
So that's over a period of time, Brett Bradigan, right?
Yeah, I think these were just certain things that he did at that time.
I guess I would say it doesn't have to be particularly recent, like in the same year, but incidental, I mean, not incidental, but
Cumulative?
like not ongoing, like Craig or Rose has been for a long time, but rather for maybe like Tia, her one contribution there.
Right.
Would be how I would
Yeah.
describe it.
Yeah.
Well, we have our names.
Yeah.
Now we can discuss them next time.
Okay.
Well, I think that the way we did it last year, then someone needed to, and I think it says here,
Yep.
someone has to be assigned to research each one that we've talked about.
Right. So I did Terry last year. I think I might have done Twice Old Tales too, because I had worked with the individuals on that. And did you do Don Keating? Or Elise?
I
Did
did.
you do Don Keating last year?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I am happy to talk to these two ladies and bring information back to us next time. If somebody would like to talk with Craig,
I'll talk to Craig.
okay?
But if you talk to them and say.
I know that's why I was dancing
Just
around
Goo-
it.
Just Google them and see what you can find
Yeah.
online about them.
Yeah, that would be good. Same thing on Rose. There's a lot of history on Rose.
I'll do Rose.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so then that gives us,
But we seem to be
Wait a minute, Elise and
flexible
me
on
and
what
Titus.
we do depending on the year. Maybe one year we do 2 lifetime and not an annual. One year we do 2 annual and then a lifetime, or just 1 annual. It doesn't seem like we have any pattern. Just seems like who we
No.
decide. Is that?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I think it just depends on who pops up and who's
see,
on the
91,
list.
19, yeah, seems like there's a few years where there was no one that was recognized. No idea why. But,
I don't know.
okay, of course.
So just to answer, and I'm not voting for myself to get an award when I say this, I'm just saying, it says that talks about somebody else being eligible as our government officials or staff. So, I mean, I just think anybody could get the award. It's on attachment A, page 1.
Yeah, no, I think anybody can get the reward.
So I'm gonna do Rose Boggs. Gina, you're gonna look up Craig. Brian, you're gonna do the books. So we have 2 commissioners left to do 2 commissioners.
Gina's Craig.
I'll do you.
There you go.
Done. That wasn't so hard.
Let me write it down.
Okay, Cindy is Rose. Okay, no motion needed on that. We ready to move on? Okay. Item number 5, Mills Act brochure, final version. I think we'll skip pestering Mr. Vega. My understanding is there were some minor adjustments done at the last meeting, and this is basically just to,
Very minor.
yeah, just to formally approve the Mills Act brochure. Is that,
Number 3 in the center was changed to text that Cindy sent me. And that's about the only thing that was changed, I believe.
okay.
Maybe a couple other things. So that's it.
Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Mr. Vega?
Commissioner DePoit,
Yes.
Commissioner McHatton,
Yes.
Commissioner McCready,
Yes.
Commissioner Convery,
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn,
Yes.
and Chair Akins.
Yes. Okay, that was.
Thank you, Elise.
Thank you very much, Elise.
For what? Oh,
The
that?
Mills Act brochure work.
So much. How much time do you have?
I just have one comment, and I actually think it's a ink missing on my printout on the last page of which page is it? It's the middle of the page with all the print. It says city, mine should say city regulatory, but it looks like the ink blurred. Is that a typo, or is it the ink?
Where are you looking?
Oh.
Yeah, I think it looks like a line in probably the scanner.
Just the scanner. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought so, but yeah, I just.
Oh.
went-
So
Yeah,
we'll
it was-
confirm that and
Yeah.
then
Trying to read.
we'll correct it.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, that looks like a scan
Yeah.
of PDF to a Word doc. Or you used another software package, I think, in doing the historic in doing that. Okay. One thing we didn't talk about, and maybe so, is we didn't talk about the downtown historic district. And so I was, in the discussion that came up, and this goes to future agenda items, in the discussion that came up at the city council meeting when we were talking about the $15,000 toward the historic reports, when I got up there, I clarified to them that it wasn't a historic reports, it was one half of a historic report for the downtown historic district. And a question came up, I'm gonna walk this one gently. A question came up in that discussion on why we were spending so much time focusing on the downtown historic district and using staff members' time when we hadn't been given the go-ahead to do so. And so that's something that's kind of set me back. My understanding when we had the joint meeting with the city council, that was that we all went in there with the intent of soliciting input from the council members. And I believe we all came out of that understanding that we had the support of the council members. And we proceeded to discuss the historic downtown district. So I was tap dancing for budget requests for two different organizations, so I didn't want to bring that up at the moment. But so that's something that I will clarify between now and the next meeting with the councilman that brought that up. The other thing he raised, and this was another interesting question, was he said, I'd like you to answer the question, what are we getting out of a downtown historic district that's better than redoing the design guidelines for the downtown historic corridor?
Asked by somebody who doesn't know anything about preservation, apparently.
Just something to think about. I was asked that question, so I had sent an email to Luke asking him if he could come and share some thoughts at that time, but Luke's.
I have a suggestion about that discussion. First of all, we recorded the joint meeting, I believe. Is that correct?
It is. It's on video on YouTube.
That's a good reference model. Secondly, and I don't know the wording by heart, but I believe the website which describes our duties as a Historic Preservation Commission is to look for and to actively work toward preserving the community in a historic context, which includes the historic downtown. That's our job. We're not supposed to sit here and wait for direction from others. Otherwise, why would we would just be sitting here with our mouths shut until somebody walked in and said, hey, can you figure out what the street length should look like? You know, that's not the job. And it's clearly distinguished on the website, which describes why we exist. You know, it's our raison d'etre is to do this.
I was a little bit set back on my heels when
As I said,
that argument was being made, but I had already
believe
used
that
up my 5
argument
minutes.
was made by somebody who's very naive about what preservation is. That's not a judgment call, it's an observation.
Okay, well, yes.
So I've been talking to Cheryl and to Suzanne and getting their input. I know that Suzanne's document that she was working on.
Cheryl.
Cheryl, no,
Sherry?
not Sherry, the one who's there.
Suzanne?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Suzanne and Cheryl, and Sherry, both.
Sherry. Oh, Sherry, okay.
Both of them.
Yes.
And they both had two different documents. One was more for taxes and information that had the owners listed, and hers was all about what they're working on right now of doing all the different ordinances, trying to figure out so many businesses have so many already on, and we're talking about not wanting to add another layer onto them. But this is all discovery, and I think that the way it was described, she sent me her document, and it had an overlay of all different...
She being Suzanne.
She sent me hers, all different colors. I don't know if you've seen it, but because it was part of their planning commission meeting that it came from that, and each color of the downtown corridor depended on what ordinances that they had to abide by.
Uh-huh.
And it was pretty much the same core area that we're talking about. And then the one that Sherry gave me was this I think is the only time that we're using hours of the staff, is that she took our notes from your map from Colleen McDougall from the brochure, and she kind of just followed in our little drawings that we did to make this. I think this is the only thing that we've used hours, or I don't know how long that would have taken her to do. So then what I did was I copied this into this, I numbered it.
Oh,
I
okay.
started using all of their documents of owners and coming up with a list of 87 different little squares from this document, and where it is and who owns it, and what the property number is on it. So we can just have a starting point. Right now, this is such in early stages, even to ask for $15,000. We don't know what we want to be in the district. I mean, we obviously know the historic core is the downtown and the arcade, but it was more just, we might not even be ready to utilize that for another year. There's so much outreach, there's so much discovery of what is it, and coming up with what are these buildings and what would be conforming and non-conforming, and there's so much discussion, but as far as our hours, we're not paid anyway, so that doesn't really.
We're the best value in town, other than maybe Mr. Vega, who's doing 4 jobs at the same time.
Yes. But I'm hoping that, I wasn't under the impression that we got the support not to do a district, but to start to study the idea
Absolutely.
of a district, and
Which
that
is our
what we're-
job as a Historic Preservation Commission.
Agreed.
And this is going to be a long process, and it's,
Agreed.
and we don't have an answer, we don't know what we're going to be coming to them with, but I thought we had the support to keep moving in that direction.
We do. I mean,
Yes, that's my
according to
understanding.
the special joint meeting.
Yes.
And then, now I forget exactly what they said, because I've heard a lot of words, but something, what is the value of having a historic district as opposed to changing the guidelines? Well, if we are, the merchants and so on are, this town is going to survive on tourists, it's really of value to the tourists. I just have been doing a lot of traveling, and I traveled up the East Coast. Every single town has a historic district. And the first place everybody goes, they want to see the historic district. They do the walking tours like the museum does. There's a lot of interest in that. And then, after I saw all of that back there, I came here, and then I started going around California. Torrance has one, you know, everybody has one. And it's where anyone who brings relatives to town, not necessarily a tourist, but just relatives to town, or someone is thinking about moving there, that's the first place that they all go. So I think it's representative of our town, and that has value in itself. So, but I also agree with, we're so far from that, we're way over here. But anyway, but as to the value, it has intrinsic value, it has monetary value, it has tons of value.
I agree with you
I have
you
a
completely.
question.
Yes.
What is Ojai's primary source for income? Is it tourists? Is it the Ojai Valley Inn, which / is tourism because they're coming here to park for the weekend? What is our source of income?
Mr. Vega gave that
Bars?
presentation in
Yeah,
Is
way
it
too familiar with
Tellers.
tourist-related
It's
stuff?
TOT
or-
tax, TOT
Transfer
tax
occupancy
is,
tax.
Transient occupancy tax
Is
is
that
by
our
far.
largest source of
by
income?
far the
Is that the
largest
okay. So I think I can safely say that tourism is our largest source of income. Why do people come here? They don't come here because it looks like Thousand Oaks. They come here because it's Ojai, and maintaining that and preserving that will increase our value and increase our resources. So this is why I said the person who asked you those questions was naive about what preservation delivers to a community. Athens, at the turn of the century, I just learned, passed a law, the turn of the last century, that no building could be taller than the Acropolis. And Athens is a bungalow city, and you can see the Acropolis from everywhere in the city. And the Acropolis is the largest source of income for the city of Athens, period. So, you know, that was a preservation decision that was really a good one for the future of the the community of Athens.
Mhm.
So preserving our downtown, I believe, is a great financial decision. That's my thoughts.
Commissioner McCready?
I have a question for Mr. Vega, a couple of questions. What is the status of the work on the new downtown design ordinance, and is the Planning Commission the lead agency on that?
The downtown design ordinance, are you talking about the design guideline update? Yeah, so the design guidelines went to Planning Commission. They've gone to Planning Commission a few times. They're scheduled to come back to the City Council at either the only meeting in August, we only have one meeting in August this year, or the following meeting in September.
You know, this seems to be a recurring thing. The Planning Commission acts as though the Historic Preservation Commission doesn't exist. And I think that if they're looking at a downtown design guideline plan, they ought to be consulting us. We have several landmarks within that boundary area, and it's just, it's common sense that they would do so, and they haven't.
Excellent point. Thank you
So I
very
have-
much.
I have a question.
Yes.
So this document is a work in progress. I'm working on trying to figure out every business, every owner. James, can I share this between the two ad hocs? There's nothing that has to do with anything except the area that we're talking about and what's in the area, what business is it that's in it. Can it be shared?
What was the source of that document again? That's not the design guideline one that's
So
going?
this came from the design guidelines from Cheryl,
Oh.
Suzanne, and then Sherry gave,
Okay.
this came to us.
We could provide that to the whole
So-
HPC, and that would address that.
From that, I made this document, which is basically just copying the overlay and then numbering it so I can try and figure out what is in each spot. And then this document is just trying to figure out what is there.
Yeah.
I know the business turnover, owner turnover, there's going to be information that maybe one of us has and another one doesn't have, but it's just finding out what is what. Can that go back and forth between the two ad hocs without it affecting Brown Act?
Is it information that could be provided to the public, or does it have sensitive information?
There's no sensitive.
Okay, we can make it available to the public, and then in that case, it's a public document, and, any member of the ad hoc can see it, and any other member of the public could come in and request it as well. So
Okay.
we could do that.
Yeah, well, the issue is if we had, 5 other copies of it, we'd walk away with it today, so.
Okay, well, we can make copies today. I can keep a copy for public record.
And then, is that,
Or I can give you the digital
Yeah,
files.
yeah, we could do that.
and then have you distribute that to the HBC?
Yep.
That would be fabulous.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Anyway, update from
And the other
council.
The other
Yes.
question is, can this be I know if you look on the June meeting that we didn't have, it said discussion, the ad hocs, and then from the July meeting, it disappeared from that. Can
Okay.
it be a standing thing that we just talk about it instead of,
It was supposed to be that way.
well,
I don't-
it's on the Junes, but it's not on the Julys. So
I
I
don't
just,
see an issue with that. The direction I took away from that conversation was basically, it was telling staff, and I think there's a few things. One is, I think people know we're shorthanded right now. We have the general plan update is supposed to be our number one priority, and we haven't made progress on it like we should have made progress on it. So what I took away from that was they were telling us, you guys don't spend time on this. I don't think that means that the HPC couldn't further, research it. So we can put it on the agenda to have the ongoing check-ins.
I think one of the problems with making sure that we follow Brown Act is having the two ad hocs. The only opportunity that we have to have both ad hocs talk together in a public setting is this meeting. So if it doesn't stay on, months can go by and we might be working, like, for all I know, you could have been doing the same exact thing and we wouldn't have known.
Yeah, well, part of the process, and Elise has seen this, part of the process and in talking with Luke in different things has been the request for me to review the agenda before it goes out. And it's not happening each month.
Well, just
I mean, I
another day.
sometimes find out what's on the agenda when I get the email like the rest of the public, so
But
I
it-
agree with you, it just
I'm
needs to
just
be
saying,
there.
if this is a normal thing that's gonna, it's like, we're at the very, very early stages of this progress, and we're gonna meet once a month.
Yes.
Just have it just standard on there.
I agree with you completely, so that's been passed on. Okay, historic, future agenda items, tentative, August 8th. We have those, but would like added to that, the structures of merit update. That was the email that you had sent into.
I've been thinking about adding some structures to the list, but we also need to focus on presenting to the council to approve the list, so, but I would like this to be included in the next agenda then?
Yes,
If
yeah,
everybody
so
agrees, or two people agree?
Yeah,
I've
nope.
got 6 places, a couple might be controversial, but I put them on there anyway. But can I list them or not? Is that not appropriate?
Can you list them?
Word,
Well, we're not doing any action, we're just talking, so.
okay. One is the Friends
Get her-
Shell Station at 469 East Ojai Avenue, which is the Ojai Roti restaurant. One is the Hunt Auto Livery at 110 North Signal Street, which is Treasures of Ojai, and the Point de Chêne Wine Place. One is the People's Lumber Company, which is Ojai Cafe Emporium and Walker's Hay and Grain, and the other is Andrews Ford Dealership, which is currently Ojai Coffee Roasting and Julia Rose Clothing Store. And the other is Cottages Among the Flowers and the Mallory Way Cottages. Those are the 2 controversial ones.
Go figure.
Julia Rose was a Ford dealership?
Yeah, the 2 together.
How did they get a car even in there? Like they had one Ford in there?
They were
Both
smaller, yeah.
places
Yeah.
together.
But that's still,
There was a fire there, and we
when was it the Ford dealership?
1926.
Oh, wow.
You don't
Are there
remember that?
photographs? Yeah. Ooh. Are
I've
there
got-
any photographs? I'm just curious.
I just
It's
have a lot
interesting.
of articles about when the fire was and when
Yeah,
what was
19
rebuilt there, and then it was
1917.
Western Auto after
I
that.
mean, the fire, the
Remember, you've seen
1917
pictures of
fire?
Western Auto, huh?
It was a Ford dealership before the 1917 fire.
No,
There was a separate fire.
no, there was a fire there in 1926. The
Oh.
buildings that were right there across the street.
Oh,
Just a couple
so-
buildings,
oh, okay.
and then it was replaced with a Ford dealership.
Oh, that makes more sense.
But you've seen the pictures when Western Auto was there, right?
No,
No? Oh.
no, I've never seen them.
Anyway, the other thing on the agenda was is it possible we can vote on landmarking the theater next month? Is there a reason why we can't, as a body, vote to landmark the theater now that the theater?
Because we haven't involved anybody in that landmarking decision. It's not something that we would do all by ourselves without any input from anyone else,
You
so.
can't recommend a landmark as a,
We can pretty much
HBC?
do whatever we want. What happens when it gets to the council is a completely different matter, so.
Didn't we have to talk to the owner of the theater?
Yeah, and that was one of my questions on my cheat sheet over here. Mr. Vega, do you know what the status is on the theater?
Trying to think of what, I've gotten briefed on it, and some of it was, privileged information, but I
Uh-huh.
believe they are going through a sale now. I think I can say that, but, so,
That's the rumor I've heard
yeah,
too.
yeah, I think I can say that, so I would expect that it's gonna be a different owner in the next few months or so.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, myself, period, no. I think
yourself, what?
my thought period is to try to run the theater through as a landmark. It's a whole process that takes a long time. It's not something that we can do typically in a month. So, I'm not ready to
But
put
it-
that on the agenda next month.
Oh,
So-
isn't that part of the role of this body, though, is to recommend landmarks of places?
True. But it's done, done with the inclusion of a group of people that are affected by and should be participating in that action.
Okay.
It's not, typically not done just by us. Again, getting back to future, annual Historic Preservation Award nomination, we've already done that, so we can move the September 12th to the August 8th. When do we want to talk about Ojai Day? I personally would move that to September 12th. I'd forget what assignment I got unless I put it in my phone. The other thing I have, and I didn't get, I had sent Luke an email, but again, Luke's not here. We have talked for months and months and months about a proclamation. Initially, we talked about having a reception for the Smith family, they who donated the Smith Hobson house to the city. Then that morphed into a lesser requirement of asking for a proclamation by the council to the Smith family. Elise knows the Smith family very well in having done the background research for this. And so I would just like to know where we are on that.
Plus, I submitted all the whereases that the city could possibly use as suggestion, not telling anyone they had to do it, but just to make it easier on the city. And so I kind of, I just can't understand what's happened to it.
Yeah, I don't know the whole background on it, but I could tell you, so the mayor and I meet to set the agendas, and we have identified a group of meetings in fall that we're going to try to schedule it for.
Okay.
The trick, the agenda really is, it's a jigsaw puzzle of trying to find the items that will go together. So, but the mayor and I met and talked about doing it in the fall.
Great. That helps, thank
Yeah.
you.
And we keep in mind, we don't have we don't have any summer meetings, so it's fall is actually in the next couple meetings. So.
Okay, another question I had was, in the previous meeting, the agenda for June 13th, there were windows that were going to be changed out at 41 Terramina Lane, and that seemed to have gone poof. Do we know what happened?
I don't, but we can get that information and send an email out to the commission of what the status is.
Oh, okay, that would be great, because it just showed up on future agenda items. Yes, Commissioner
Terminal Lane
Convery.
window change, is that what it was?
41 Terramina,
Okay.
I have a
window
question.
changes, yes.
The El Roblar Hotel,
Uh-huh.
the Oaks, it's been sold, and two things, I think it should be on the landmark list, and what's going on with it?
So I don't think it's been sold yet. I think it's in the process.
It's in
to-
escrow.
Yeah, it's in the process. I don't think I can talk about it, but the point about the landmarking's a fair point. Yeah, I don't think I have anything that I can report on that.
Because of its location, isn't it subject to historic approval? Or can they do anything they want to it? And because of
Because
the
of its
date it was built,
location.
the date it was built, the history, the fact that it's a historic structure, and
Yeah, well, and I think that's something we've talked about with them is it's going to be part of the analysis of whatever changes they would make. But I don't think
who's
that there's
they? Oh,
the prospective owners.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but even that, I think it's premature to say. Even I don't know that they're planning to make any changes. So I've heard things like there's a couple of rooms that got converted over time and that convert those back. So I haven't heard anything like major. So, but yeah, all that would be part of the review process.
But is it, we don't have an official historic corridor, but on that part of Ojai Avenue, and because it's in between the museum, it's right in the heart of it, would it be subject to more scrutiny?
It'd be subject to more scrutiny. I don't think it would be subject to any more legal requirement. It's, this would be part of, if a historic district was established, that would develop some requirements. I think because it's the Oaks and because of the history, like, we're gonna make sure that we, fully, thoroughly vet everything. But there's no historic requirements on that project that I'm aware of. I haven't been fully into it, that are outside of any of the other, outside of just any standard CEQA or.
Yeah, that's why we need a historic district,
So,
because.
and it's not
really-
then subject to the design standards of the Arbolata, I think is what we're getting at.
No, I don't think
So-
that one
so
is.
it doesn't have design standards like that.
I don't think so. And then one of the things that's come up with a couple of, one of the things with this is, like I said, if they don't really make any changes to the exterior of the building, then there's really, they could remodel portions of the interior without even really needing any permits or anything. So, the more they do, the more triggers there will be, but they theoretically could, do some new wallpaper that was a bad example, but just some slight renovation inside the building, reopen, and they wouldn't even really need to come through the city.
If you look on the Planning Commission and the proposed map, it does include it in this blue, which blue would be redevelopment area statement
Yeah.
of theme.
The redevelopment area.
So it is captured in there somewhere within their proposed guidelines or current guidelines.
But that's still up in the air. I mean, it's in escrow, it's gonna be closed, and the owner, I would imagine, has funding to move ahead very quickly and maybe has plan. He could rush it through and to avoid any kind of preservation issues. So, I mean, it could be turned into like a motel, 50s motel, or another, who knows?
It was there
They're
before.
really popular at the moment.
Yeah, in Thousand Oaks, but.
Everything's, modern,
I haven't-
modernizing.
Looks like the space that was grass forever next to Bonnie Lou's, it's being developed.
So that was the infamous land swap, 334 East Ojai Avenue. We swapped land with the developer so that what was the grass strip is now going to become the walkway, and then they will have more to do. I think they were going to do like an outdoor patio or something
Okay.
like that. So that was approved about a year ago, and it just took a while to get the building permits.
But they came before us whenever it was a year ago
Years
and
ago.
wanted to do some kind of galvanized lights, or I don't remember what the issue was, but it wasn't appropriate according to the guidelines.
Yeah.
So now they've got it all masked off. So whatever's happening in there, I mean, if it's glass, you're going to be able to see in, and it could be quite different.
Yeah, I'm not sure offhand. That went through. I know that project came to HPC and PC, so I'm assuming, which maybe I shouldn't do, but I'm assuming that whatever the final design is has been approved. It should have been approved, but I'm not familiar with
I
it
don't
offhand.
think we saw anything here. Do we see a final design on that?
No, we haven't seen it since they were talking about the land swap.
Okay,
Yeah, nothing.
all right. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, my gut feeling is that when somebody covers everything with a tarp for months and then they work on it and then they reveal it, it's for a reason. And the reason is not.
The
generally
reason
great.
is, the reason is, and I hate to say it, but the reason is bureaucracy. We had to work with the county to do the land swap, and the county, even with the city being the ones to do it, held up the project for probably about 8 months. Where we were,
RT did?
where we were trying to get the deeds recorded
there
and everything
county-
else.
Land there?
No, but just as far as the going through the actual land swap, having deeds recorded and that recognized the
Oh,
land
okay,
swap,
yeah.
it took months and months. So they actually were ready to go like probably close to a year ago at this point.
Should not those designs have come before us, since it's part of the corridor?
I'm not sure. I know the design was approved. What I'm familiar with is the design was approved by planning commission and council. I'm not sure of more than that.
It's part
My,
of the
uh,
arcade.
That
is
would
it
be
not?
Darwin's observation.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, isn't that part of the arcade? They did have to come before us
It's
originally.
just, right, but it was just beyond the arcade.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so that's why we basically, they came before us and we basically said, hey, you know, there's no real history in those two buildings independent.
I thought there was history.
Yeah, and I think that was actually
there
what
are-
triggered the,
City Hall or something it was?
It was.
that's actually what triggered the design guidelines item that was mentioned earlier, was I think one of the questions was, should these be expanded to include some of these buildings?
Yes, they should,
Yeah.
it should.
I did climb in and around because I was taking pictures, trying to figure out what's what, and the side where the walkway is, it looks like it kept the historical integrity, and it looks nice. I mean, it's recently painted, and you can see everything's coming off of it now. The front is still covered, but the side, you can see where each little individual business has a door and the windows, and they
Oh,
look
okay.
they look in tune with how they used to be.
But they haven't torn the trees down yet,
Yeah.
have they?
I was gonna say, I know that they had
Trees
just
on
done
the
an,
east
ar-
side of the arcade? They take those big trees down?
I saw a picture with it
Okay.
cut down.
Well, I'll
didn't
check
think
it
they
out
were,
when we.
but-
yeah, I haven't seen it, but I'd heard they had done an arborist report.
Anyway.
I have one more thing.
Certainly.
I need to go back to the theater, because we were talking about, well, what happens now? And I'm thinking back to the motion that we made. The motion that we approved was to approve the report, but we didn't instruct staff to forward it to the city council, as I think we should have done. I think that should have been part of the motion.
Oh.
Or we can
Good
revisit
point.
it and do another
We worked,
thing,
we
because.
worked really hard to get this motion to come to us first before it went to the city council. And then somebody called and wanted the information from the historic resource report, so I actually had to call the city councilman and make sure they had a copy of the report before I gave it to this person, because that would not have been good. And so when we got it shortly after that, remember, we got it handed to us at the end of the meeting? Shortly after that, the two of the council people were given
Okay,
a copy
well,
of
but
that.
now we want to send the official
agree with you,
approved.
Go ahead and make the motion.
So the motion that I made earlier, can I say to bring to council?
Yeah,
Make a second one.
I assumed it was implied, but yeah, I don't see any problem with amending it.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Okay.
Perfect, good catch.
All right.
Officially amended? Did you just officially amend it, James?
Let's officially amend it. Do you want to amend,
Okay.
just to be
Okay.
safe?
So with the changes that Cindy mentioned, correct? That
All of us, I think.
there was
Whatever,
something that
yeah.
was specific that you said.
To forward it to
I
council.
think we have to reopen that item first.
Oh,
Okay,
that's
Yeah.
true.
okay.
So which item
that's
are we on?
number
We're
two.
on number two?
Two.
Well,
Number
it was-
two.
It was changing theater and making in the timeline, you wanted it to say in this time, it was
Yeah.
changed to this name.
That was the Hartleys and that was the
Brian,
theater.
you have
So,
to reopen the item.
Okay.
Is that right? Brian,
so.
like officially say the words.
Okay, number two is reopen.
okay, so I am making a motion to
Amend.
amend with the changes that Elise suggested and the timeline suggestion of the theater spelling that you suggested.
Right.
And I would like it to go to council.
Got it.
I second.
Roll call.
Commissioner DePoit,
Yes.
Commissioner McHatton,
Yes.
Commissioner McCready,
Yes.
Commissioner Convery,
Yes.
Commissioner Quinn,
Yes.
and Chair Akins.
Yes. One last thing. Elise? Did you have some information you wanted to share with us?
Yes, I'm moving to Arizona in August, and so the August 9th meeting will be my last meeting on the HPC.
Whoa.
So,
I'd
I'm-
like to add, I think that's maybe why she wanted it approved before you left at the next meeting.
I knew
I've been
that.
involved with the theater for so many years. I just want to see it open and landmarked.
It's
But-
in good hands.
Another reason why I asked about the proclamation, yes.
And the proclamation, I won't be here, so
Yep. So,
You could come back.
Yeah. Or you can live stream since it's, you know, you
Yeah.
can be partying in your house.
I mean, I might still be willing to help with the little research on the history of some of the places in the historic district, but I'm going to be leaving all of my research files at the museum. I've organized them all
Nice.
alphabetically, whole box and a half of all my research.
Perfect.
I'm hoping the museum will take it.
I know the guy over collections.
I mean, for the library.
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes it
yeah,
has to come
but I won't
through.
have that, but I have a lot of stuff digitally, so,
If you
anyway.
have digital, I'll give you a thumb drive because I'm building the digital archive and putting it online on Dropbox, so,
Well,
for the museum.
I don't know how organized those are, but anyway, so the next board meeting, the next
Ninth?
meeting is the 9th, right?
Lisa.
So I'll be here for that.
Okay.
Unless there's nothing on the agenda.
I think we put some things on the agenda.
I would just like to say how much I appreciate everything that I've learned from you and that you've given to our commission before you were on it and since you've been on it. Your hours and time and dedication and attention to detail has just, it's amazing and it's so appreciated and I'm going to be so missed. There's going to be so many errors now.
Well, the staff will be happy.
But, you know, I'm happy to come and visit you in Prescott when we had to go over to Sedona, just not too far away. Yeah, no, I echo that. Interesting enough, met Elise through a different venue, being the treasurer of the museum and Elise being our bookkeeper for many years. 5 years. And so she does fine work in any venue that she's putting forth. So thank you, Elise. She definitely.
Thank you. Will you be missed?
Okay, we ready?
Yeah.
Thank you all. And City Manager Vega, thank you for joining us. And son soon to go to Pepperdine Law.
Yay.
Waves?